My mom has always preferred my younger sister over me. Despite that, I did everything I could to support her because I felt I owed it to her for raising me. But everything changed when my sister decided to move back home. Without hesitation, my mom cut me off. She screamed at me, saying, "Get out of here, you leech. I'm done putting up with you. If this is what you want, I'll make sure you pay for every grudge I've ever held against you." Hi, my name is Aurora, and I'm 30 years old. After finishing college, I landed a decent job and continued living with my mom. My dad passed away a few years ago, and my younger sister Zara is already married with her own family. I had plans to move out and live on my own too, but after my sister got married, I stayed behind to take care of my mom. I couldn't bring myself to leave her alone. Looking back, it's clear that my mom has always favored my sister over me. Zara and I are complete opposites. She's beautiful, trendy, and has an undeniable charm, even though her personality is, well, not exactly the nicest. Somehow, she manages to hide that under her good looks, making her appear perfect to others. In contrast, I'm more serious and straightforward, which never seemed to impress my mom the way Zara's charisma did. After Zara got married and moved out, my mom constantly complained about me. She would say things like, "I wish I were living with Zara instead of you. Why does Zara have to be so pretty and you? Well, you don't have anything to offer. I'm so tired of seeing your face every day. Oh, how I miss Zara." It hurt to hear those things, especially since I was the one working to support both of us financially. My mom didn't appreciate any of it. "Mom, I know you think Zara's great, but you don't need to put me down like that." I finally snapped one day. But instead of calming down, my mom got even angrier. "If you were half as good as Zara, I wouldn't have to deal with you like this every day." She shouted, "You don't even have any real problems. We've been living here together ever since your dad passed away, and now you're trying to act like you're doing me a favor." I didn't mean it that way. I tried to explain. "I'm here because I have no choice. If Zara hadn't gotten married, I wouldn't be living with you." My mom scoffed. "That's enough. We live in a house that was rebuilt shortly before my dad passed away. Although the house is in my mom's name, I'm the one who has been paying off the remaining loan. Yet she constantly compares me to Zara and criticizes me in every possible way. I was reaching my breaking point, living with a mother who made me feel unwanted every single day. Still, I couldn't give up on her, and there was a reason for that. When my dad died, my mom was devastated. She cried for days, barely ate, and was so weak that everyone was concerned about her. I felt an overwhelming responsibility to take care of her. I told myself that I had to step up and support her, not just as her daughter, but as the eldest in the family. For my dad's sake, I promised myself I would protect her no matter what. Even though her words and actions hurt me, I couldn't bring myself to hate her entirely. She was the only parent I had left. Then one day, out of the blue, my sister and her husband showed up at our house. As soon as Zara saw my mom, she burst into tears and said something that shocked me. "Mom, we're struggling. We're having a really hard time making ends meet," she sobbed. My mom's face immediately filled with concern. "What's going on?" my mom asked. "Well, Zara started. My husband just lost his job, and we can't afford our rent anymore." My mom's eyes widened. "Oh no, that's awful. I don't know what else to do. I really need your help, Mom. Can we stay with you for a while?" Zara pleaded. As soon as she said that, I knew things were about to take a turn for the worse. But before I could say anything, my mom jumped in with an enthusiastic, "Yes, of course. My precious Zara is in trouble. Of course you can live here." Zara's face lit up, and she hugged my mom. Thank you, Mom. I love you so much. My mom beamed with joy, clearly thrilled by the idea of having Zara back. They had made the decision without even consulting me, as if my opinion didn't matter. Feeling frustrated, I spoke up. Wait a second, Mom. I live here too. You can't just invite them to move in without asking me. My mom turned to me, her expression blank, and said, "So what?" I was stunned by her response. "Mom, 2 more people are going to move in just like that. Where am I supposed to go? I have my own room." "I don't care what you think," she interrupted coldly. "This house is in my name, remember." "That's true, but—" I started to argue, but she cut me off with a heavy sigh. "If you don't like it, Aurora, then maybe it's time for you to leave." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What? Are you serious?" "You heard me," she said, completely unfazed by my shock. "I told you to leave from the start. You were nothing more than a stand-in for Zara in my life, you know." My mom snapped at me, her words cutting deep. I stood there, stunned. "That's horrible. You don't need to talk to me like that. I don't need a leech like you around. Now that Zara is coming back, I have no use for you." Her words stung. How could she dismiss me so easily after all the years I spent taking care of her? I had dedicated so much of my life to supporting her, while my sister had barely lifted a finger after she got married. But despite everything I did, it was Zara who had always been her favorite. I couldn't believe how easily she was ready to cast me aside. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I fought to keep them from falling. Then my sister, seeing the situation unfold, chimed in with a smug grin on her face. "Sis," Zara said with that sly tone I had always hated, "Mom's right. Why don't you just get lost?" "What?" I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. "You heard me. There's no space for you here now. We don't need you." "I'm the one who's been supporting Mom all this time," I argued, my voice trembling with a mix of frustration and hurt. Zara rolled her eyes. "So what? Mom wants to live with me now. You're nothing but a nuisance. Just go already. You're trash." Without missing a beat, Zara turned back to my mom and her husband, and the 3 of them began happily planning her move. They were talking about things like having a big barbecue to celebrate, while I stood there, invisible to them. "I'll get the meat for the barbecue," my sister chirped excitedly. "That sounds great," my mom replied, completely ignoring my presence. I couldn't believe it. As they laughed and talked about their plans, it was as if I no longer existed. Then Zara turned back to me, her tone now filled with impatience. "Hey, why are you still standing there? Didn't I tell you to get out? But you can't just throw me out like this." I protested. "We don't need a parasite like you hanging around. Just leave already and give us some space. Be out by the end of the week. That should be enough time, right?" Her words felt like daggers. I clenched my fists, holding back the wave of emotion that threatened to spill over. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Reluctantly, I nodded and left the room, my heart heavy. As if that wasn't enough, while I was packing, I overheard my mom and Zara planning a vacation. "We'll be gone for a few days," my mom said. "Just make sure you're out by the time we get back." Those were her final words to me before they left the house. To her, I was nothing more than a burden, something to be discarded now that Zara was back in the picture. I had tried for years to be the good daughter, but now I realized that no matter what I did, it was never going to be enough for my mom. I was done feeling sorry for her. The sympathy I had once felt for her was gone, replaced by a burning desire for revenge. And so, with a new resolve, I took action. I contacted a moving company immediately and made arrangements to move out as fast as possible while my mom and sister were away. When the movers arrived, they were curious about the situation. "Are we taking everything?" one of them asked, noticing the amount of furniture being packed. "Yes, please make sure to clear everything out," I replied with a smile. I was moving into company housing, which had been offered to me a few times before. Back then, I had turned it down because of my mom, but now I saw it as the perfect escape. There were still vacancies available, so I quickly filled out the necessary paperwork and started my new life. The company housing was better than I had imagined, spacious, clean, and far from the toxic environment I had been living in. As I settled into my new place, I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from both my mom and Zara. I wasn't surprised. I knew they would be furious once they returned home. Their voicemails were filled with demands. "Get back here now," the messages screamed. Although I had expected this, the number of calls exceeded what I had imagined. I knew that if I ignored them, they might show up at my workplace, so I decided to confront them after work. When I arrived at the house, both my mom and sister were waiting for me, anger blazing in their eyes. The moment I walked in, my mom shouted, "What the hell happened? Why is the house empty? You even took my favorite fridge." "And toaster," Zara added, her voice shrill. I stood there calmly, watching them rant. "Where did you take everything?" my mom demanded. "To my new place," I said, my voice steady. "You can't just take things without permission. Bring it all back now." Zara screamed, her face flushed with rage. "Why should I?" I replied, unbothered. "What do you mean? Why?" "All that stuff belongs to Mom," my sister yelled, her frustration growing. I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" Zara snapped, her voice filled with irritation. "I'm sorry," I said, shaking my head. "You must be mistaken." Zara's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "Everything that was in this house, every piece of furniture, every appliance. I bought them with my own money." Her face fell. "That's not possible. All of this was here from the beginning." I crossed my arms. "No, it wasn't. I paid for everything. Since I'm moving out, of course I'm taking what's mine." My sister's mouth hung open in shock, but I wasn't finished. "And by the way, the bank account you're talking about, that was my money too." Zara looked as if she was about to explode. "You emptied the account. How could you?" "Simple," I said. "It was my money. Why wouldn't I take it all?" When I pushed her buttons a little, my sister's face flushed with anger, and she stormed toward me, shouting, "Don't mess with me." She was practically in my face now, red with fury. "Give back the money." That big book should have had Dad's insurance money in it. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "The money. It's not there." "Of course it's not," I said flatly. "That money's long gone." "No way." "The last time I came over, there was a lot of money in that account," she insisted. That was just me adding in some of my own earnings bit by bit, letting it grow over time, I explained. "But Dad's insurance money, that's been spent ages ago." My sister's head snapped toward our mom, eyes wide in disbelief. My mom, caught in the spotlight, quickly averted her gaze, guilt written all over her face. "Mom, is this true?" my sister asked, her voice trembling. "Well, my mom fumbled, avoiding eye contact. Seeing that my mom wasn't going to answer, Zara lost it. "What the hell, Mom?" "I came back here because I thought Dad's insurance money was still in the house." Mom tried to calm her down, muttering, "Just calm down, Zara." "How can I calm down?" My sister shrieked. "You're the one who wasted all of Dad's money." What are you going to do now? I just wanted us to live together again and be happy, Mom mumbled. You came back because you wanted to live with me, right? Zara's response was sharp and bitter. Are you kidding me? I only came back because I needed to pay off my debts. Debts. I repeated, and as the conversation unfolded, I learned the truth. My sister and her husband had gotten themselves into deep trouble with gambling. They owed a huge amount of money and had returned not out of love or family bonds, but to grab what was left of Dad's insurance payout to clear their debts. Worse yet, they had gambled more in a desperate attempt to pay it off, only to sink further. Eventually, her husband lost his job due to corporate downsizing, leaving them with no income and nowhere else to turn. It was only now that my mom realized how she'd been played. She had forced me out of the house on a whim to make room for Zara without understanding that they were using her. This was the result of her poor judgment. Well, now you understand, right? I said, my voice steady. There's no more insurance money here. All that's left is the mortgage on this house. Without warning, Zara burst into tears and ran toward me. Wait, sis, please. My husband and I are buried in debt. We can't pay the mortgage on top of that. That's not my problem, I said coldly. Let's figure this out together. You can live with us and help out, just like before. She pleaded, her desperation palpable. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh no, I didn't know you had fallen this far. Besides, Mom always wanted to live with you, didn't she? Wait. No, please don't leave. Zara's voice cracked with urgency. Yes, Aurora, stay, my mom added, her tone suddenly soft. We'll make it work, I promise. I shook them off, unwilling to entertain their pleas any longer. I supported you, Mom, in this house my entire life. I even paid the mortgage, yet you threw me out the moment Zara showed up. You called me a parasite, and now you want me to stay and help. You must be joking. Zara isn't a cute little sister. She's a leech, a human parasite, and I won't be part of this mess anymore. I turned to leave, my final words hanging in the air. You two will have to live with the debt yourselves. I'll never come back to this house again. As I walked out the door, I could still hear my mom and Zara calling after me, their voices growing distant. But I didn't stop. They clung to me until the very end, but I had no reason to listen anymore. I was done. Almost a month has passed since then. My mom and sister, realizing their mistake, started working part-time jobs just to scrape by. Even with both of them working, it wasn't enough. In the end, they had to sell the family home and move into a small, cheap apartment. Life there wasn't pleasant. They fought constantly, blaming each other for their situation. Zara would snap, Mom, if you hadn't thrown Aurora out, I could have used her help. And my mom would retort, I did it to make space for you too. You said you wanted to live with me, but all you cared about was the money. Their arguments grew more vicious by the day. Neither of them could survive without money. And without me, they had nothing. The three of them, my mom, Zara, and her husband, barely had enough to eat most days. They couldn't even afford new clothes. Meanwhile, my life has completely turned around. Moving into company housing was the best decision I've ever made. My commute to work is shorter, and I have more time to relax and focus on myself. Looking back, I realized that being kicked out of my parents' house was the best thing that could have happened to me. I'm living a fulfilling, happy life now, and for the first time in a long time, I'm thinking only about my own happiness. So in a strange way, I'm grateful they pushed me away. It gave me the freedom I needed to live a better life.